I didn't expect to be humiliated on the happiest day of someone else's life, but there I was, standing in the hallway of a Charleston wedding venue, holding my clutch like a lifeline while Jenna's sister gave me the kind of smile that felt more like a warning. "Claire, I'm really sorry, but we need you to leave," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. "It's just some people are uncomfortable. It's throwing off the vibe." The vibe? I blinked at her, confused. I'd flown in early, helped with last-minute prep, even curled ribbons for the welcome bags. I'd known Jenna for over a decade. She used to call me her chosen sister. Now I was being quietly escorted out like I'd spilled red wine on the dress or crashed the wedding uninvited. Asked why. Jenna's sister just sighed and said, "It's what she wants." What she wants. The words hit like a slap. Outside, the sticky South Carolina heat clung to my skin as I stood on the gravel path, heels in hand, music from the string quartet floating faintly through the open door. I could hear laughter inside, champagne glasses clinking, the easy rhythm of people who belonged. I didn't. Not anymore. I wanted to believe it was some misunderstanding, but deep down I knew better. This wasn't about the seating chart or a random guest complaint. This was personal. Jenna didn't want me there, and she'd finally found a way to make that clear, without looking like the villain. I turned toward the parking lot, face burning, heart hammering in my chest. Every step away from that venue felt like walking out of a story I'd been written out of months ago. And I didn't even see it coming. Jenna and I used to joke that we were the kind of best friends who'd end up in side-by-side rocking chairs one day, yelling at the neighborhood kids and sipping sweet tea like two old Southern ladies. We met freshman year at UNC, both wide-eyed and overcaffeinated. And from the minute we survived our first all-nighter in the dorm lounge, we were inseparable. I knew her coffee order, her breakup playlist, the names of every boy she ever liked, and she knew mine. For a long time, it felt unshakable. We went through everything together: her mom's second divorce, my dad's cancer scare, our move to Raleigh after graduation. We once road tripped to Nashville just to cry sing Adele songs in a karaoke bar after she got dumped. She was the one who brought me soup when I had strep. The one who sat on the bathroom floor with me when I thought I couldn't get through grad school. And then she met Logan. At first, I was happy for her. He was charming, polished, maybe a little too smooth, but she lit up around him. He had that kind of easy confidence that made everyone lean in a little closer. I tried to like him, I really did. But something always felt off. He'd make little digs when Jenna wasn't around. Once, at a dinner party, he laughed and said I talked like I was auditioning for NPR. It wasn't a compliment. Still, I stayed quiet. Until I couldn't. About 6 months before the wedding, I ran into Logan at a rooftop bar downtown. Only he wasn't with Jenna. He was with another woman. Not a friend. Not a coworker. I watched them share drinks, touch hands, disappear into the elevator like it was muscle memory. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew what I saw. So I told her. And that was the beginning of the end.
She didn't yell.
She didn't cry. She just stared at me like I was a stranger, like I was breaking something sacred. "You must have misunderstood," she said. After that, she stopped texting back. Invites dried up. I went from maid of honor to nothing. No explanation. So when I got the wedding invite weeks later, I thought maybe we were okay. Or, at least on the path back. I was wrong. I was halfway to the valet stand when I heard someone call my name. "Claire, hold up." I stopped, slowly turning around, expecting maybe a pity wave or some awkward apology from one of Jenna's distant cousins. Instead, I saw Ethan, walking briskly across the gravel in his navy suit, tie loosened and hair wind-tousled like he'd just stepped out of a movie scene. We'd barely exchanged more than a few words during the rehearsal dinner. He sat at the end of the overflow table with me and the other misfit guests, friends of friends, co-workers, plus ones. He was polite, a little quiet, but quick with a dry one-liner. I'd noticed him, but definitely hadn't expected him to notice me. Now, he was here, holding 2 iced coffees from a vendor cart near the back gate, one of them extended in my direction. "I figured you looked like you could use this," he said, offering a small smile. I blinked. You're not going to ask if I started a fist fight in there? His grin widened just a little.
Did you? No.
Then no questions. I took the coffee and let him lead me to a low stone bench beneath a moss-covered oak, the kind you only find in towns like Charleston. For a moment, we sat in silence. I sipped, trying to keep the tremble out of my hands, still stunned by everything that had just happened. Then, without looking at me, he said it softly, like it had been sitting on his chest for a while. You're the one I've been waiting for. I froze. I turned to him slowly. Excuse me? He met my eyes. Not like some dramatic movie thing. I saw you at the rehearsal dinner. The way you were alone at a table of couples, making the best of it. You didn't pretend. You didn't perform. And then today, what they did to you. That was messed up. But you handled it with more grace than most people would. I didn't know what to say. No one had looked at me like that in a long time. So instead, I just stared at the trees above us and took another sip of my coffee, letting the quiet between us say what I couldn't. I thought maybe Ethan would change the subject, make a joke, ask about where I was from, pivot the conversation to something lighter. But he didn't. He just sat there beside me, elbows on his knees, eyes on the gravel like he was weighing whether or not to say what he really wanted to. Then he said it. I know what Logan did. The words were low, steady, like he'd practiced them before. I blinked, unsure if I heard him right. I saw him, Ethan continued, multiple times. And I'm not the only one. But every time someone brought it up, Jenna shut it down or worse. His family told us to keep quiet. Didn't want to ruin the big day. I stared at him. Wait, so you knew? He nodded, jaw tight. Yeah, I didn't know how deep it went at first. But a few months ago, I caught him texting someone else during a family dinner. He brushed it off, said it was complicated. Then I found out you tried to tell Jenna. I looked away. That familiar ache crept up my throat, the one I'd been swallowing for weeks. She shut me out, I whispered. She didn't want to see it, he said. But you were the only one who had the guts to say something anyway. That takes guts.
Claire.
Most people just look the other way and stay quiet to keep the peace. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, well, look where that got me. Ethan turned to me, his voice firmer now. What it got you was integrity. That's not nothing. His words hung in the air between us, heavier than the humidity. For the first time since I'd been shoved out of that wedding like an unwanted extra, I felt seen. Not just pitied, but actually seen. Ethan didn't say it to make me feel better. He said it because he believed it. And for some reason, that mattered more than I expected. My phone buzzed on the bench between us. Then again. Then 5 more times. I didn't want to look. I figured it was Jenna, maybe doubling down, maybe saying something final and cutting, but curiosity won. The first text was from Monica, one of the bridesmaids. What the hell happened? Jenna's acting weird. People are asking where you went. Then another. Did you really get kicked out? And then a photo. Grainy, dim, but unmistakable. Logan. Leaning a little too close to a woman who definitely wasn't Jenna, her hand resting on his chest like they'd known each other a long time. Monica, again. That was last weekend in Nashville. Thought you should know. Jenna doesn't believe me either. I handed the phone to Ethan without a word. He squinted at it, then let out a slow breath. Yep. That's her. I've seen her before. He didn't even look surprised. Another message popped up. This one from Jenna. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you? You've always needed attention. You didn't just ruin my wedding, you embarrassed me. Please don't contact me again. I read it 3 times, each one stinging worse than the last. Wow, Ethan muttered, his jaw clenching. She really doesn't get it. It hit me like cold water. She was never going to see me as the friend who tried to save her from heartbreak. I was the villain in her fairy tale now. And no amount of truth would fix that. I handed the phone back and stood up, pacing a few slow steps toward the parking lot. Inside the venue, the music was still playing. The night was still unfolding as if nothing had happened. But I knew. The cracks had started. And once they started, they always spread. I sat back down on the bench. the weight of everything sinking into my shoulders like wet cement. My hands were still shaking, even with the iced coffee now sweating into my palm. I stared at the gravel beneath my heels, wondering how friendship that once felt bulletproof had unraveled so cleanly, so completely. I wasn't even angry, not really, just tired. Tired of being the one who always extended grace, who kept showing up even when the energy wasn't returned. I told Jenna the truth because I loved her, because I thought love meant warning someone when you saw them about to crash. But all she saw was betrayal. All she wanted was loyalty, even if it meant lying to her face. She thinks I did this to hurt her, I said quietly. Ethan looked over. Yeah, people who are in denial usually do. I gave a weak laugh. I stayed friends with her longer than I probably should have. I think I was more afraid of losing the history than I was of losing her. He nodded, his expression soft. You weren't just losing a friend. You were losing the version of you who believed in that friendship. I hadn't thought of it that way before. But he was right. That's what hurt most. Not Jenna's words. Not even Logan's lies. It was the realization that I'd kept myself small, polite, agreeable, silent, to preserve something that had stopped valuing me long ago. I took a slow breath. The sky above us had turned that deep Carolina blue that comes right before sunset. The cicadas had started their evening chorus. I didn't feel better, but I did feel clearer. Ethan stood up beside me, brushing off his slacks like he was gearing up for something. He didn't look rattled, just resolved. I'm going back in, he said, calm but sure. Someone needs to say what no one else will. I opened my mouth to protest, to say it wasn't worth it. But he was already walking. Not storming. Not making a scene. Just walking tall, like a man who decided silence wasn't an option anymore. From the bench, I watched through the trees as he crossed the courtyard and re-entered the reception through the side doors. It was a strange feeling, watching someone step into the mess I'd been dragged out of, not to stir up drama, but to clean up the truth. Later, Monica would tell me what happened. He didn't make a speech. He didn't out Logan in front of everyone. That wasn't Ethan's style. Instead, he pulled Jenna aside quietly near the bar. No spotlight. No audience. Just the two of them, standing face to face among strings of twinkle lights and half-empty champagne flutes. He showed her the photo. He told her about the woman in Nashville. He told her she'd pushed away the one person who had the courage to be honest. And then he left. No mic drop. No fight. Just truth laid bare. Back on the bench, I waited. Not because I needed revenge, but because I needed to know someone still had the spine to stand up for what was right. When Ethan returned, he didn't say anything right away. He just sat beside me, the weight of it all clinging to him like humidity. Finally, he said, "It's done." I looked at him. What did she say? He shook his head. She didn't say much. But she heard me. That's enough. And for the first time in days, maybe weeks, I exhaled. A week later, I was back in Raleigh, curled up on my apartment couch with a throw blanket and my laptop, trying to lose myself in work. The wedding felt like it had happened months ago, not days. But the ache still flared when I let my mind drift. I hadn't heard from Jenna since her last message, and honestly, I didn't expect to. There was nothing left to say. Whatever friendship we had had quietly collapsed under the weight of denial and silence long before I'd been escorted out of that venue. But I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. I threw myself into work, caught up with a few friends I hadn't seen in ages, and started running again, something I used to love but had let slide. Bit by bit, the fog around me lifted. Then, one afternoon, a small box arrived at my door. No return label, just my name written in clean, simple handwriting. Inside was a leather-bound journal, soft brown, minimalist, beautiful. Tucked inside the front cover was a note. Thought you might need a place to write your version of the story.
E.
I stared at the message for a long time before even touching the journal. Ethan and I had been texting. Nothing intense, mostly dry jokes, Spotify links, random memes, but it was easy. Safe.
Real.
A few days later, We met up for lunch at a little corner cafe near the farmer's market. No pressure, no big talk. Just two people sitting in the sun, sharing a sandwich and laughing at the way the waitress couldn't get his name right. It didn't feel like the beginning of a romance. It felt like the beginning of a reset. I wasn't trying to win anyone back. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just me. Before he left, Ethan leaned in and said, "For what it's worth, I think this version of you, the one that finally stopped shrinking, she's the one worth waiting for." That night, I opened the journal and wrote one sentence on the first page. Sometimes, getting pushed out of the wrong room is the only way to find the right one. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally ready to walk through that door.